Hello everyone, my name is Robert Vogel. I'm a developer at the Hello World company. We are the creators, maintainers and publishers of the BlueSpice MediaWiki distribution. And this tutorial is going to be a very technical one. I'm going to introduce you to the so-called MWStakeComponents, and I will quickly explain how to use them in case you create your own MediaWiki extensions. So I have only a couple of slides here, then we will go right into code. But just to give you an overview and an impression of what those MWStakeComponents are. So as I said in the beginning, we are maintainers of BlueSpice, the BlueSpice MediaWiki distribution. And when we started with this several years ago, a lot of years ago, we found that a lot of our extensions need the same or very similar functionality. They had to share functionality. And for that reason, we created one keystone extension called the BlueSpice Foundation, which featured a lot of functionality that could be reused all over our other BlueSpice extensions, and which should make it the functionality of all the extensions more aligned with each other, like error handling, dealing with input and output, stuff like that. And yeah, to ease the development here. Then some years ago, we decided that so the problem with that approach was that it's basically making this BlueSpice Foundation extension grew rather big, and it was a dependency to a lot of extensions. And we a couple of years ago, we started to create more and more non-BlueSpice extensions as well. So we didn't want to base those on the BlueSpice Foundation, because BlueSpice Foundation also introduced a couple of behavioral changes which users outside of the BlueSpice world didn't want to have. So we decided to basically split up the BlueSpice Foundation and break out the various parts and make them reusable for other extensions. And from that, the MWStakeComponents were born. Actually, this build is not entirely true, because the BlueSpice Foundation is still around, but we have created a lot of such MWStakeComponents in the meantime. And yeah, that's it. I want to show you how to use them. Let's minimize that. And for that, for this purpose, I have set up a little extension here, a little wiki here, and I have created an extension. So I think you can maybe make it a little bit larger. So this is a plain MediaWiki with basically nothing in it. The only thing that I did so far is I enabled the vector skin, the visual editor, and that demo extension. Nothing else so far. So the MWStakeComponents are, you can think of them as some kind of a library-based approach to MediaWiki functionality. So a library usually gives you very generic functionality, but we wanted to basically serve MediaWiki specific functionality, such as API modules or services to the MediaWiki code base. We decided to use Composer for installation and management of dependency management. And therefore, we first need to prepare our installation of MediaWiki to recognize Composer dependencies on extensions. If you've worked with MediaWiki, you probably have seen this, where is it? This file, Composer local, it's the Composer local JSON-sample file. I have already copied it over into, and I've removed the -sample suffix. And this is basically how it gets shipped. I haven't changed that. And as you can see, It basically registers two paths. One is the extension path and the other one is the skins path. And there is a wildcard in it, and it basically says, okay, if somebody executes Composer, the PHP package manager Composer, within the MediaWiki root directory, it will actually dive down into the extensions and skin directories, check for additional Composer JSON files, and pull them in. That way, we can all the dependencies will be put into the centralized vendor directory. And yeah, this is now what we're going to do. So first of all, we need to make sure that MediaWiki or that Composer recognizes the MWStake component that we want to use. And after that, we need to create our extension, which is, I think it's already here. So this is really just a minimalistic version of an extension JSON file. I have also I have not yet a Composer JSON file in it. Let's quickly do that by just copying over. Hopefully that works now. So, wait, sorry. So yeah, now I've copied over the next step where there's basically a Composer JSON in it. This again is a very minimalistic Composer JSON. It's not packages compatible, so it doesn't feature a package name or anything. It just declares a requirement, which I have set to be for this example, the generic tag handler component. I don't need to wire anything in addition, like some additional package registry, but those packages, those components are enlisted on the official packages.org service. So this is all that we need to do. On the extension JSON file, I had to also create to make a small change, and that is I have registered a so-called callback. That callback makes sure that the component is properly initialized. That is basically just a small function from the component that is being called when the wiki boots up, and make sure that the component is properly initialized at the beginning. If your extension features its own callback, and you cannot do it like this, you can just call this method within your callback function that you have defined. Let's quickly check what happens now that we have this require registered. For that, I'm going to run just running the --nodev because don't want to download too much. And what we can see here now is that actually it's downloaded a couple of components. It's not just the generic tag handler component that we have seen in the registry, but it also uses Composer to pull in requirements of that component, which would be the input processor and in this case the component loader. The component loader, by the way, is a dependency to basically each and every MWStake component that we have published so far. But the other one, not necessarily. So if we now look into the vendor directory, we can find a MWStake folder, and we can see there are those additional folders that have been pulled in by Composer and are now available to the code base. Okay, as a next step, I can now start making use of those components. Let's just copy over the next step and see what has changed. So in the extension JSON, I have added a hook handler here. A hook handler that's the default, the standard way of adding functionality to MediaWiki. And what my plan here is to make use of that that generic tag handler component to create another tag extension for the MediaWiki software. Let's have a quick look how this works. As you can see in this step, I have already created 3 additional files. Let's start off with the hook handler, which is quite simple. As you can see, it basically just creates an instance of a tag class that we have here. We will look at this in a minute. A nice thing about this way of instantiating and registering and creating those tags, by the way, is that we can use dependency injection very easily. So if our tag depends on any additional service, MediaWiki provides us with ways to inject those services into that hook handler, which we can then pass on to the tag if required. The tag itself here consists of 2 files. One is the tag file, and the other one is the handler file. Why did we do that? Well, the tag file is more, the tag class is more lightweight. That is for describing the tag, while the handler basically does the heavy lifting. That's just a design decision. It's not necessarily bound to the MWStake component, but this is just part of for this particular MWStake component. Let's have a quick look what this code is composed of. As you can see, we can now make use of specific base classes and interfaces coming from that MediaWiki component namespace. So these classes, basically a class library, has been pulled into the code base and can be now used, for example, by extending it or by implementing it. In this case, I have just created a small tag, call it hello world. I can set a couple of flags on it, for example, whether it should use parser cache, whether it has to load resource loader modules, all kinds of stuff. So these things are all declared in the, let's see if I can open that. So here you can see this is the original interface, which now lives in this vendor MWStake component generic tag handler folder, and here you can see all kinds of methods that I could override, that I could implement for my tag. And we want to focus on 2 things. One is the get param definition, because that's quite a nice use case for this kind of component, and the other one is this handler. The handler itself basically just does has a method that needs to be overwritten, and I can put some string in there. Let's quickly use that tag. So that would be this would look like this, and we can see it does the output of hello world. As a next step, I would want to enrich this content and just show what kinds of benefits we actually get from using such a component. So next step would be this one. No, wrong one apparently. Okay, my bad. Now here we go. So I have slightly adjusted the this rendered content method. As you can see, I am accessing a params field, which I have type hinted here with being an MW user. This is passed in already. And as it is a user, I can execute some methods on that, basically. And if we now look into the tag description, we can see I have added a param definition, which has said, okay, there should be a param name, which is in this case type of username. I can tell if the user that I specify in there has to exist or not, and I can also provide some default, and that's it. Theoretically, nothing should have changed by now. Wait, wrong one. So that should be still, yeah, okay. So this basically it's just added the your ID is. This is now the word is now a parameter, so I can and I can just use something else, for example, and let's also use an invalid username, because that is actually where the beauty comes from. So So here I'm using an invalid username that is because it has brackets, for example. MediaWiki usernames may not have brackets because they are special syntax in wiki text. So, and if I now save this, for example, I get a number of errors. So for the wiki sysop, it has detected the proper user. It gave me a proper reference, so I can read out the ID. Sam, it doesn't complain about Sam. The user Sam doesn't exist, but that's okay for MediaWiki. It just has an ID of 0. But as you can see, it says invalid is not a valid username, and it gives me a clear information to the user. And that is why the MWStakeComponents can be very useful, because this is all built in the component, all the validation and the checking and the output. Yes, question?
Is the error message you see the actual exception message that is generated in PHP?
No, it's not an exception. So there's a validation step, basically. It validates against a couple of rules. So for example, I can also alter this if I say, for example, the user must exist. So this is not an exception or anything, but it will run a couple of validation rules, and based on which validation rule fails, for example, it will give me a different output. Yeah. So exactly. So this whole pre-processing comes for free by just using the component. And in addition, and that is, I think, a little bit special to the approach with the component, rather than being just a library, we also have some API interface. Let me just see if I click. Yeah. Let me copy that into the other window, because I think it's more readable. And what we see here is now we have an actual web API out of the box that gives us a list of registered tags. And with this kind of information, we can now do a lot of additional things, and we already did. So for example, we implemented additional extensions like the Visual Editor Plus extension. Let me just copy that over as well. Okay, there should now be, sorry. There should now be a folder Visual Editor Plus extension. Yes. Obviously, I need to enable it in the local settings. And this Visual Editor Plus extension will now make use of this extension, of this API basically, and it will provide me with an edit interface. And for example, here it already recognizes the name. And in addition, this component allows you to easily specify this kind of input form that we see here. So the integration into Visual Editor, for example. So this takes a lot of work from the developer, because they don't need to bother with registering their own Visual Editor plugin, with creating their own inspector and stuff like that. But basically, this all comes out of the box by using this kind of component. As I said, the component itself basically just provides the classes, the services, and the API interface. And then again, extensions can make use of them, and we have already a couple of extensions making use of them, and making it easy to create functionality on the MediaWiki stack. So I guess that's it from the technical demo. The most important thing you need to know about the MWStake components is how to use them. So I've demonstrated that. They need to be registered as a dependency in the composer.json file of the extension, and you need to make sure that the wiki, that they are properly installed within the wiki, for example, by this approach. Be aware that these extensions are semantically versioned, so they have just regular releases, and they have dependencies between each other. So that's why it's really recommended to use Composer if you want to work with them. And let's just go to the last slide here. No, come on. Here we go. So to sum things up here, first of all, the MWStake components are designed to be BlueSpice independent. So even though they are by the Hollowell company, which is the developer and maintainer of BlueSpice, they are meant to be usable by other people as well. They can be pulled in by Composer. You don't need to use any specific registry for that. You can just use the regular Composer packages registry. If you want to learn more about them, you can visit this link. I will share the slides later on the conference wiki. There's quite a number of them already. Sorry. Here we go. And yeah, they usually have some documentation on their repository itself. So you can see how to load them, which services they expose, and so on. And last but not least, obviously, feature requests are welcome and contributions are welcome. So if you want to try them out and if you find them useful, please use them. If there's anything that you think needs to be improved, means of documentation, means of functionality, please just use the regular ways that you have on GitHub, for example, to file an issue, to file a feature request, and that's it. Are there any questions?
It's sometimes hard to tell, I guess you'll have to repeat the question, it's sometimes hard to tell what the dependencies are for every blue space extension. Would you agree with that, and is it something that you guys are working on?
Sorry, can you repeat? I'm not sure if I got it.
Hello. It's sometimes hard to tell what the dependencies are for any specific blue space extension. Some require blue space foundation, some require,
Yeah.
4 or 5 other blue space extensions and so on.
Yeah, usually for BlueSpice itself, we usually use the MediaWiki extension manifest file, which has a requires section in it. Most BlueSpice extensions really just depend on the foundation itself, but they integrate into each other. So while other extensions may not be required to run them, you would have a benefit from having other extensions, for example. Again, so the extension JSON has a require field that should give you information about actual inter-extension dependencies, and the composer JSON will give you information about such dependencies like libraries or components.
Oh yeah. This uses OOUI right now?
Yeah, the Visual Editor Plus extension that we have just seen, that
Well, just the MWStakeComponents in general, I guess.
The MWStakeComponents in general, we do have components that actually implement some OOUI classes, yes. I think there's a form component that makes use of it, yes. But most are limited to services, API connection, API endpoints, services, sometimes also client-side libraries. I think there's at least one component that actually makes use of OO, yes, that's true. But most of them don't. The user interface is usually implemented in the extensions itself, not in the components. Okay.
I think we have a question online. Let me just check. How do you deal with the fact that everything is composer loaded while developing? Let's say you want to create another component. Do you symlink the composer package, or do you deploy vendor directory?
Yeah, actually, during development, we usually clone or basically symlink the source code repository of the component into the location of the vendor directory. That's a common way to do it.
Any further questions? If not, then thank you.
Thank you.